Hello, my friends. It is 5 a.m. on a very chilly winter morning on a Saturday here in Melbourne, Australia. Welcome to the channel. Great to have you back again. If you're not back again and you're actually new, make sure you subscribe to get notifications about all our videos in your feed. Otherwise, you probably won't get any. So, very exciting stuff. You know, the crazy thing about the biggest batteries in the world is the biggest battery in the world 6 months ago will soon be the 19th biggest battery in the world, potentially even further back than that. That's just based on batteries we know about right now. Not all the many battery plants that will be announced over the next 12 months. The number of massive, enormous batteries that have been announced in the last 12 months is truly mind-boggling. In fact, my brain's struggling to comprehend what is going on. Seriously, what is going on? You know, I thought the world was going to kind of move across to renewable energy really quickly. But honestly, it's happening way faster than I realized. And you know what? It's happening in two of the world's biggest polluting countries, Australia and the United States. In fact, really, it's California and Australia. Well, and there's something happening in Florida. There's one in Melbourne, a couple in New South Wales. Anyway, pretty much everything is going on in the United States and Australia, really. And one crazy project is going on in China. And when I say crazy project, I mean very different and interesting, because it is... I've read all about it and I still can't wrap my head around it. In the town of Dalian in northeastern China, the Chinese are building a Redox flow battery, which is the world's largest lithium-free battery by far. And I mean by a million miles. Absolutely fascinating what the Chinese are doing with this battery. A lot of people think that Redox flow batteries are the future. After doing a lot of research, I don't think they are, and I'll tell you why later on. Now let's get started. Top 10 biggest batteries in the world. Now actually, the list is actually 27 long, but I'm going to give you the top 10 first, and if you want to hear about the following ones, hang around. Number 1, biggest battery in the world is the CEP Energy Kurri Kurri project in New South Wales, in Australia. It is going to be by far the biggest battery in the world at 1,200 megawatts, which is 8 times larger than the world's biggest battery 6 months ago. 8 times larger than the world's biggest battery 6 months ago. Now, the world's biggest battery 6 months ago was built in Adelaide, Australia. And at the time, it was talked about in the media as being this amazing, cool, awesome, crazy thing. And to be honest, a lot of the media criticized it, including our Prime Minister, or our President, you could say. Our President is a moron. And he said that the battery was a stupid idea, and he called it the big banana. He said it would never work, and it was an idiotic idea. Well, the funny thing is, right after that big world's biggest battery came along, it actually paid itself off in less than a year. So what the owners did is they added 50% to the size. Because it was doing so well for them commercially and making them so much money, they thought, why not make some more money? That's a true story, I'm not making that up. So our Prime Minister got egg on his face and looked like a moron. Now, why did this battery plant make so much money? Well, quite often, most of these battery projects are actually to replace natural gas or coal-fired peaker plants. So peaker plants are used when the current energy system doesn't have enough energy in it, like it might be a really hot day, so everyone's using their air conditioner, and all of a sudden there's not enough energy. So then they turn on these enormous peaker plants, they fire up the coal plants or they fire up the gas plants, which takes hours to actually fire up. So everyone's without energy. This is what happened in Australia, in Adelaide in Australia. On hot days, everyone's power would go out because everyone was drawing too much energy from the grid, so the grid would just collapse, and they'd call them blackouts. So the idea was that Tesla came along, Elon Musk actually came along and said he could build the world's biggest battery in Adelaide, Australia, within 100 days. And then if he didn't do it in 100 days, that he'd give Australia its money back for building the battery. Well, turns out Tesla did build the battery. Turns out it was a huge success. It did exactly what it needed to do. And Adelaide in Australia, it's a big city in Australia, has never had a blackout since, because the peaker plant, the big battery, did its job perfectly. It did its job far better than anyone expected, because peaker battery plants can turn on within a fraction of a second, whereas coal-fired power plants, gas power plants, take quite a long time to turn on. And by that stage, you've already had a blackout and the grid's down. So this is what led to this enormous battery resurgence in Australia. In second place is another battery in Australia, which isn't built yet. Like number one will be built in 2023, but this battery will be completed in 2022. And it is 700 megawatts, or more than 4 times bigger than the world's biggest battery 6 months ago. Now, ironically, the location of the world's second largest battery will be built on what used to be a coal power plant, which is no longer in existence because it was costing too much money to run. You'll see a common theme here. Now, the world's third biggest battery is the Moro Bay energy storage facility built by Vistra Energy, which will come online in 2024 in the United States, in Morro Bay, California. And it will be 600 megawatts, which is 4 times bigger than the world's biggest battery 6 months ago. Now, Vistra Energy is actually a power company who are planning to achieve full net zero carbon emissions by 2050. And along the way, they're going to retire 7,500 megawatts of coal generation and deploy a massive amount of renewable generation. Now, the 4th biggest battery in the world is back in Australia. So you've got 3 of the 4 biggest batteries in the world in Australia. That may change though, because obviously all of these batteries are coming online in either 2022, 23 or 24. Or in this case, for the Nguyen Wallawarang Great Western Battery. I have no idea how you pronounce that, even though I'm from Australia. Sorry guys. This battery will be delivered by Tesla and will come online in 2022. It will have 500 megawatts of generation, so it will be more than 3 times bigger than the biggest battery in the world 6 months ago. It will be built, like I said, in New South Wales, Australia, and it will replace a gas plant with the world's largest solar-powered battery facility. Full stop. This will be the world's largest solar-powered battery, which is pretty cool. It's going to be purely powered by solar panels. It will be basically in a field, lots of solar panels around it, and those panels will power the battery. In number 5 is Florida Power and Light's big battery, which will be built in Parrish, Florida. And it will actually come online this year. It will have 409 megawatts of power, and apparently will be finished in end of Q4 2021. In 6th place is the Manatee Energy Storage Centre, called the South Fork Solar Energy Centre, which will also come online this year in November of 2021, and will also have 409 megawatts of storage, and it's being built in California. Now, you'll notice one interesting thing. Of the world's top 10 largest batteries that are either in existence now or will be built within the decade, of the world's 10 largest batteries that are either in existence now or will be built within the next 2 years, 4 of those are actually in California. Now, the world's 7th largest battery is in operation right now. In fact, right now, it is actually officially the world's biggest battery, but it will very soon lose that title to a number of other batteries. That battery is the Moss Landing battery, and it's currently completed phase 1 of generation. It will complete phase 2 in Q2 of 2021, which will give it a total of 400 megawatts. However, it's possible that battery could become the world's largest battery within a few years, as there is scope to increase the size of that battery to 1500 megawatts, which would be 10 times bigger than the world's largest battery 6 months ago. Crazy. Now, the 8th largest battery in the world is the Energy Australia Jiralang Big Battery. It should come online in around about 2025, and it will have 350 megawatts of power, making it the fourth largest battery in Australia and also the fourth largest in New South Wales. It will mean that New South Wales in Australia will actually have 4 of the top 10 largest batteries in the world. Now, the 9th largest battery in the world will be the next era Energy Desert Peak battery, which will have 325 megawatts of power. Now, I don't know when this is going to come online. I wasn't able to find out when. No one seemed to know, but it will be built in the United States, in California. And when it comes online, it should be the 9th biggest battery in the world. Now, the 10th biggest battery in the world is called the Ravens Energy Storage Project in Manahi Energy Storage Center. And it will come online in 2024 with 316 megawatts of energy. Now, that means the 10th biggest battery in the world will be more than double the size of the world's biggest battery only 6 months ago. The 10th biggest. You can imagine that between now and when this battery facility comes online in 2023-24, there will probably be another 50 battery energy storage projects even bigger. That's what I think is going to happen. Why do I think that's going to happen? Well, the reason I think that's going to happen is because the cost of these battery projects is going to significantly decline for a number of reasons, and I'll tell you what those are at the end of the video. But almost all of these battery storage facilities, in fact, all the top 10 biggest battery energy storage facilities in the world use lithium batteries. However, I believe that will change at some point in the future, where the world's largest batteries will actually be lithium-ion phosphate instead of what they are now, which is called NMC, or lithium manganese cobalt oxide. Now, why will that happen? Well, it all comes down to price and the number of charges that you get out of lithium iron phosphate batteries as well. So the Ravenswood Energy Storage Project is actually in Queens, New York. So it's the first and only entry in the top 25 biggest batteries in the world, which is in New York. Now, in 11th place is the Tesla Latrobe Valley battery, which is in Victoria, Australia. This battery will come online in 2024 with 300 megawatts of energy storage, making it twice as big as the world's biggest battery 6 months ago. And it will also be the largest battery-backed solar corporate agreement in the world. Now, the world's 12th largest battery is called the NV Energy Partnership with Google. It will be between 250 and 280 gigawatts, coming online likely in 2023, and is a partnership between NV Energy and Google. And it's going to be built in Nevada in the United States. The 13th largest battery is LS Power Gateway Energy Storage, which will be 250 megawatts, and it will be built in the East Otay Mesa in San Diego, California, coming online in 2023. Next up in 14th place is Diablo Energy Storage Battery, which will actually be completed in only a few months this year in 2021, and it will be 200 gigawatt hours, making it 50% bigger than the world's largest battery 6 months ago, but putting it in an incredible 14th on this list. That one's going to be built in Pittsburgh, California. In 14th place is the largest battery in Europe, which is going to be built in Lithuania and will come online this year, probably around about November, December of this year. It'll be a 200 gigawatt hour battery, and it's really kind of an exciting thing for Europe, being the largest battery in Europe. Hopefully that will change and we'll see some bigger batteries announced later on in other countries in Europe. Now, the 16th largest battery is the Henlu Energy Storage Power Station Company and the Bolong New Materials Vanadis Power and Rong Power Battery, which is, like I said before, the Redox flow battery built in Dalian in northeastern China, and it will be by far the world's biggest lithium-free battery. More to come about that battery. Hang around. The 17th biggest battery is the Moss Landing Alcon Battery Energy Storage System, built by Tesla and PG&E, which comes online in a matter of weeks in 2021 this year, so a couple of weeks from the release of this video, and it will have 182.5 gigawatt hours and be built in the United States. Now, the 18th largest battery in the world was the largest battery 6 months ago, and it's called the Hornsdale Power Reserve, and it was actually built by Tesla. It's currently operational at 150 gigawatt hours and is based in Adelaide, Australia. In 19th place is the Minty Power Storage Project called Penso Power, and it will be delivered partially by the China Han Wang Group in England, UK, in Wiltshire. Now, the battery actually has 100 gigawatts in operation right now, but it's currently being expanded to 150 gigawatts. In 20th place is the Azure Sky Wind and Storage and the Enel Wind and Storage Battery Project in the United States in Throckmorton County, Texas. This battery will come online in 2022 and have 137 gigawatt hours of power generation. In 21st place is the LeConte Energy Storage System with 125 gigawatt hours. This will be built in Calexico, California before 2023. In 22nd place is the biggest battery in Central and Southern America called the LeConte Energy Storage Battery. It will have 125 gigawatt hours of storage and be built in the mountain region of Antofagasta in Chile. And apparently that battery will be bought before the end of 2021, which will be a great thing for the people in Chile. In 23rd place is the Ventura Energy Battery Storage System, which is currently operational in Ventura County, California. In 24th place is the Zenoba Energy Battery System, which will be completed in Q4 2020. And that one's being built in England in Chester. So that means England has two of the biggest batteries, well, in Europe, two of the top three, and also has two of the top 25 biggest batteries. In 25th place is LS Power's Alamitos Energy Center in San Diego, California. That battery is 100 gigawatt hours, and it's actually in operation right now. It was built in Long Beach, California, to replace a gas peaker plant. Now, many of these batteries are actually replacing some kind of peaker plant, very commonly gas peaker plants. And our final battery is called the Cellular battery, being built by Strata Clean Energy, Capital Dynamics, Tesla, and a Revon Asset Management Group. And that one's being built in the United States, in California. In fact, it's already built. It's already in operation. It's also 100 gigawatt hours. So as you can see, the world's energy storage is actually being, 10x within a matter of a few years. And this is just the battery storage projects I could find that we know about. Wikipedia was useless. It only had a fraction of these. So unfortunately, all this information, probably the only place you're going to find about all this information together is in this video. I couldn't find anywhere else on the internet that actually had a list of all the battery storage projects. But this is going to be obsolete within probably a month as we hear of a new battery storage project going up. These sorts of storage projects now are basically being released almost every month in some place in the world. So you can see that battery storage is becoming an enormous part of our grid. And in fact, the amount of battery storage you see here could probably power several million EVs quite easily. Several million quite easily. And we're talking at, guys, this is just the tip of the iceberg. There's going to be, 20 to 30 times more batteries announced and built by the end of 2030. And that is, I'm talking like, seriously, probably potentially tens of thousands of gigawatt hours of generation. And why do I say it's going to be tens of thousands of hours? Well, because the cost is going to continue to decline. Very important. Cost declines will make these batteries much more affordable, much more practical solutions than they even are now. But you can see how many batteries are being built, even at the very high price they cost right now, which is around about $400 per kilowatt hour. So these batteries are still quite expensive, even though at a cell level, these batteries might only cost, say, $85. The actual, at the pack level, at the production level, having all the modules and everything packed together, the final production level, you're looking at more like $400. Now, if that price can halve, these battery projects will be even more attractive to countries all around the world. And that is almost certain to happen, considering what's happening right now with lithium-ion phosphate batteries. CATL is taking the lead on this and apparently partnering with Tesla to help. Well, obviously Tesla's building their new 4680 battery cells with full machine operation, which will decrease the price, apparently Tesla say by 50%. But if you combine that with the reported deal with CATL to use lithium-ion phosphate chemistries in these batteries for energy storage, that will bring the price down even further again. So driven by steeply falling prices and technological progress that allows batteries to store larger amounts of energy, grid-scale systems are seeing record growth in the US and beyond. obviously you can see there's a huge amount of storage going into Australia and the UK. Now in the US, an important part of this growth is state clean energy mandates, as well as tax incentives for storage systems that are paired with solar installations. Now I know I'm going to get comments here, oh, we shouldn't tax things, we shouldn't incentivize things. Guys, we've been literally incentivizing to the tune of potentially trillions of dollars the fossil fuel industry for the last 100 years. That's why we have it. That's why it's here, because we incentivized it and we continue to do so now. Basically, it's to some degree killing us. If you don't believe in global warming or whatever, but if you do, you have to believe in the fact that fossil fuels kill human beings. They literally do. If you breathe in the pollutants from coal-fired power stations, you breathe in the pollutants from petrol and diesel, obviously those things actually cause cancer. That's a fact. You can't argue with that. If anyone's arguing with that, they're just plain crazy. So, of course, subsidizing renewable energies makes total sense because subsidizing it allows us to reduce the cost to the point where it becomes market competitive. Now, obviously, solar and wind have had to be subsidized for many years. However, right now, they don't need to be cheaper than comparable versions of energy. Right now, solar is the cheapest version of energy in the world. It's declined in price by 89% over the past 10 years. So, incentives do work. Now, California is clearly the global leader in balancing the intermittency of renewable energy and electric grids with high-capacity batteries. However, guys, rapid gains are being made around the world from a 409 megawatt system in South Florida to a 320 megawatt plant near London that I didn't even mention in this list. Sorry, I forgot. To a 200 megawatt facility in Lithuania and a 112 megawatt unit in Chile. Now in the US specifically, a 182.5 megawatt plant that I talked about before, produced by 256 Tesla Megapack batteries, is scheduled to begin feeding into California's electric grid within a matter of weeks, with plans to eventually add enough capacity to the site to power every home in nearby San Francisco for 6 hours. In other words, if the sun isn't shining, you can use the battery. So this mass deployment of battery storage could overcome one of the biggest obstacles to renewable energy, cycling between oversupply when the sun shines or the wind blows, and shortage when the sun sets or the wind stops. By balancing these states out, batteries can produce fossil fuel peaker plants that kick in for a few hours when energy demands increase. Now, widespread energy storage is therefore crucial to expanding the reach of renewables. However, guys, how quickly this happens depends largely on how quickly costs continue to fall. Utility scale battery storage in the US dropped nearly 70% in cost between 2015 and 2018. This has been enabled by advances in lithium-ion batteries that have improved in performance. Mid-range costs for these batteries will fall at least 50% between 2018 and 2030. However, in Europe, energy storage development has been hindered by a restrictive electricity market, dominated government auctions that tend to undervalue storage. That said, global energy storage will at least reach 1.2 terawatts over the next decade. Key players, of course, in the market include Australia, which in 2017 became the first nation to install major battery storage on its grid with the 100 megawatt hour Hornsdale power reserve, which has now been upgraded to 150 megawatt hours. And of course, they're planning to add an additional 300 megawatt hours near Victoria. And of course, 3 additional, even bigger batteries in New South Wales. Now, the new system in Victoria will dispatch electricity between states on an as-needed basis, maximizing the efficiency of the existing transmission infrastructure and reducing the need for building new power lines that would sit idle most of the time. Now, similar projects to that are going up in Germany, and Saudi Arabia has just announced plans to build the world's largest battery with a massive solar plus storage system on the country's west coast. The facility will provide 100% renewable energy around the clock to a resort complex of 50 hotels and 300 homes being built along the Red Sea. Adding storage also makes renewable energy more profitable by soaking up excess energy that would have been lost in the middle of the day when electricity demand is lower and moving it to a time when it is more valuable. However, while energy storage is thriving in high-value markets, such as California, battery prices still need to come down to reach large-scale global deployment. So how will they come down? Well, I'll tell you how they'll come down. A new battery chemistry will lead the stationary energy storage market by 2030. That is lithium-ion phosphate batteries, which will rapidly rise in popularity as the market begins differentiating between EVs and stationary storage. Now, lithium-ion phosphate will become increasingly popular for stationary energy storage applications, overtaking lithium manganese cobalt oxide, or NMC, within a decade. Currently, the largest lithium-ion phosphate battery is actually a 20 megawatt hour battery in China that was built by BYD, who are the fourth largest battery manufacturer in the world. BYD use lithium-ion phosphate batteries, and they are definitely significantly cheaper right now than comparable lithium manganese cobalt oxide, making them perfect for energy storage and perfect for the future of energy. Now, as demand from electric vehicles and the stationary storage market both skyrocket in this decade, evolving performance priorities will create a divergence between the types of batteries used for storage and those used for EV applications like cars. Now, historically, the energy storage market has mostly deployed NMC batteries. In late 2018 and early 2019, demand for NMC batteries to be used for energy storage applications grew swiftly, far outstripping available supply. In addition to that, the rapid rise in demand for EVs since 2010 has driven down the cost of lithium-ion batteries by more than 85%. But as lead times for NMC availability grew and prices remained flat, LFP vendors began tapping into NMC-constrained markets and competitive prices, thus making LFP, lithium-ion phosphate batteries, an attractive option for both power and energy applications. So now it looks as though LFP has gained sufficient momentum to overtake NMC as the leading stationary storage chemistry by 2030. Obviously, the world's largest battery manufacturer and the fourth largest in the world both use lithium-ion phosphate batteries and currently sell those batteries at a significant cost reduction compared to NMC batteries. So in my view, I predict that by 2030, the entire energy storage market globally will be powered by lithium-ion phosphate batteries. That said, though, EVs will continue to account for the lion's share of global lithium-ion battery demand over the next decade. So, you might be thinking, hang on, Sam, you said something about Redox flow batteries. They sound pretty cool. What's going on with those? Well, the current battery in China is actually a Redox flow battery with vanadium electrolyte, and it's pretty cool. Let me tell you about it. One of the pros about this battery is that the manufacturers say it can do between 15,000 and 20,000 cycles, meaning it will last a very, very long time compared to current NCM lithium batteries on the market in energy storage solutions right now. Another big advantage of a Redox flow battery is the unique advantage in being able to adjust the amount of power and the amount of energy they store to meet the needs of any particular use case. So 15 to 20,000 cycles, almost zero degradation as well, makes them sound pretty awesome. And considering the fact that researchers at Oxford University recently said they believe they can reduce the cost by about 80% of these batteries due to some new methods they've discovered, they still do have some significant drawbacks. That is, namely, cost. Even reducing the cost by 80% would still make them more expensive than lithium-ion phosphate batteries. Another disadvantage is that they include expensive fluids that are corrosive or toxic, and the balance of the system costs of building one of these batteries is relatively high in comparison because you also need big power pumps to actually run the system Redox flow batteries need. So flow batteries seem to have a lot of potential, but the problem has been the cost of materials so far. It costs between $1,300 and $1,500 per kilowatt hour to fully install vanadium batteries. In other words, they're about triple the price of current installation of lithium-ion batteries or NCM batteries, and probably more like 5 times more expensive than lithium-ion phosphate systems. Now, you might be saying, well, what about the cost reductions that the researchers found? Well, unfortunately, at this stage, it's still at a research level. There's not really any proof to see whether it can be done at scale. But if it can be, it's definitely an option, and it could be a very good one. Now, the researchers at Warwick University in the UK say they have found a way to make a Redox flow system, a Redox flow battery that costs less than $30 per kilowatt hour. And if that's so, energy storage and renewable energy have just taken a giant step forward. If what the researchers say holds up in real-world use, the world of renewable energy and energy storage just took a huge step forward. Now, the paper is reporting improved performance with 3-flow battery chemistries by coating the electrodes with nitrogen-doped graphene. That's still a long way from having a finished battery system though, guys. But it's a step in the right direction. But now other people have to take this idea and optimize a complete system incorporating it. Now, the really hard part with batteries is going from the lab to mass manufacture to get those economies of scale needed for wide adoption and distribution. And the other thing to consider now is that lithium phosphate batteries can now manage more than 10,000 cycles without significant degradation, as long as they aren't discharged more than 80%. Now, researchers and many people are now saying that lithium iron phosphate cells can last up to 5 times longer in cycle life than NCM batteries or traditional lithium-ion batteries. And this ought to be sufficient for storage needs. So it should cost around about $50 per kilowatt hour, which is twice as cheap as NCM. And that's a major reduction in per kilowatt hour price, given that NCM batteries only give you around about 5,000 cycles. So you're doubling the number of cycles by using a lithium-ion phosphate battery, and you're halving the price. You can see how they look pretty good. Now, as I mentioned before, Tesla has claimed a 50% cost reduction with their new 4680 battery cell manufacturing approach. Combined with the cheaper chemistry of lithium iron phosphate, we might see some very affordable cells coming online within the next year or so. And as demand from electric vehicles and the stationary storage market both skyrocket in this decade, evolving performance priorities will create a divergence between the types of batteries used for storage and those used for EV applications. Lithium iron phosphate, or LFP, will become increasingly popular for stationary energy storage applications, overtaking lithium manganese cobalt oxide within potentially the next 5 years. Now, what about home storage batteries? If you wanted to have your own battery at home, why do they seem so expensive? They do seem expensive because realistically right now, you're looking at around about $500 per kilowatt hour to buy and have your own system installed, which is kind of too expensive in a way, really, isn't it? When at most, the cost of producing lithium-ion NCM batteries is at most $150 per kilowatt hour. Now, of course, we've heard claims from Elon that he can reduce the cost to $56 per kilowatt hour. That may be off into the future somewhere. But still, why are storage batteries so expensive to buy? Well, the reason is because currently the market buys those batteries at those prices because in many situations, they pencil out even at $500 per kilowatt hour, and supply is very limited because you have to include the pack and everything else that goes into installing the battery. That's just the cell cost. So you can't just say the cell cost is $50 US per kilowatt hour. The entire pack cost comes out to more like $500 US per kilowatt hour. Of course, that cost will decline over the next decade though, massively. Now, in 5 to 10 years, cell supply will be much better and Powerwall prices will definitely come down heavily as a result. The key, in my mind, is, as billionaire hedge fund owner Chamath Palihapitiya says, after massive cost declines and efficiency improvements due to automated machine manufacturing and machine learning, all of us will have the ability to access clean energy at prices we can afford. Thanks for watching. I'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye.